the kind of starting point for it is Anthropic CEO Dario Amati told CNN.
I really worry, particularly at the entry level, that the AI models are very much at the center of what an entry level human worker would do, and so it's hard to estimate exactly what the impact would be, and there's always this question of adaptation, and these technology changes have happened before, but I think what is striking to me about this AI boom is that it's bigger and it's broader and it's moving faster than anything has before. And so compared to previous technology changes, I'm a little bit more worried about the labor impact simply because it's happening so fast that yes, people will adapt, but they may not adapt fast enough. And so there may be an adjustment period.
So this happened, and then on CNN reported Dario Amandi, CEO of AI startup Anthropic, pretty much is just like warning about artificial intelligence could eliminate up to 50% of entry level white collar jobs within 5 years, potentially raising US unemployment to 20% by 2030. So, history just showing this every major media shift from print to social media has been shaped by unchecked power and profit, often at the public's expense. So, if we're not able to apply those lessons now, AI probably won't just transform media, it can magnify its harms. And when tech CEOs warn us about these consequences of their own products, we might need to ask ourselves, are we sounding the alarm or are we steering the narrative? Nolan, I'm kind of wondering what your take is on this and kind of just where we start in terms of thinking about this as people, and maybe even from the point of view, like how we might start to think about this from those who face that fear of unemployment too.
Yeah, I think it's really important to first say that those fears are well founded. Anytime there is a new technology introduced, it creates some disruption in a capitalist society like the United States. This is not this is not comfort for anybody who's facing a job loss, but I think there are two kind of interesting factors here. One is this technological revolution really seems to be the first one, certainly in my lifetime, that really seems to be threatening white collar work. So we're
Hmm.
getting educated folks who are coming out with degrees and student debt who are freaked out about the economy. That's
Yeah.
something that non-college educated working people have been facing for decades at this point due to the kind of so-called free trade global economy that really wasn't global or free trade, but that's a discussion for another day. So I think that's one part um, of it is to say that the job replacement is real, and that anxiety is really well founded. But I think on the other side, something to note, and I know Mark Blythe from Brown University mentions this all the time. It is true that when new technologies come out, they replace jobs, but it's also true when new technologies come out, they create new jobs. And so it's
Mhm.
not a zero sum game. This used to be my critique of Andrew Yang. He would talk a lot about how tech is replacing jobs, and he would talk about how we're going to be out of so many jobs, X amount of years down the line. I was always like, yeah, but you're assuming no new jobs are going to be created in the next decade. That
Yeah.
seems highly unlikely historically. So I think that's something important to remember. And then I guess from like the media kind of literacy lesson here that I at least take from this is we got to remember tech can be anything, right? I use social media as an example. Like social media could mean a lot of different things, but right now what we have is a handful of corporations control what we call social media, and they've decided to focus the algorithms and what you can and can't do on the platform on getting people addicted to their screen and
Mm.
keeping people on the platform and collecting their data and turning it into like a branding exercise. But there could be like a different social media, right? That maybe is not for profit, that actually is focused on promoting democracy or inclusivity or actually connecting people, right? That
Yeah.
theoretically could happen. So AI, I think, is the same problem. I think you have to walk and chew gum at the same time. You can be worried about AI and critique AI in its current form, but note that that current form is this corporate ownership. A handful of corporations control it. They decide what it's going to be and how it's going to be used. There could be an alternative universe where people demand, like, no, we the people, we the public, we want control over that AI. We want to design it to be something for us. And I think that's kind of the media literacy lesson in there. Is it's not that AI is necessarily good or bad. It's that we have to have a discussion to figure out what we want to turn AI into.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that same way when I think about like the classroom space as well. We've had a lot of conversations about AI because of the fact that the university system itself has implemented AI into our system, kind of without permission of, the instructors and us as lecturers, instructors. We very much have no boundaries, foundation over what we see as appropriate and inappropriate AI usage. I mean, some of us are using it in the classroom already. Some of us hate it and will like not. Some people are returning to handwritten essays. Like that is the extent to which there is a division of AI within the space. And yet we are bringing the tools into the space without any kind of guidance about the people who are going to be helping students use those tools. And so I think that becomes kind of problematic and something that we as instructors, I feel like, are trying to work through together. But I see even my students being confused as well and needing guidance on what to do or how to use these materials. I think a good example is one of my students. We were using AI in the classroom because I essentially like to say, here is an essay or something that you could use AI on, and that I probably think you will. And I want you to use AI on it and then tell me why it's good or not good. And so making them do that critical work of not only do I know you could use AI on this, but here is the ways in which it's not meeting the standards of this particular assignment. And students actually won't use the platform provided by the university because they're afraid of getting surveyed by it. So they essentially are like, no, I'm going to use my private one because I don't want to be like known as someone who uses this for this, even though you're telling me I can. And I do use it for other things, but I'm not going to tell you what. It's just very convoluted. And yeah.
What you just described there, I mean, I think is really important because we've also talked in this program, right, that there's folks who are way too enthusiastic to bring AI in the classroom, these kind
Yeah.
of techno utopians and whatever corporate propaganda the AI companies are sending out, they're bringing into the classroom. And then there's this whole other group of folks who are skeptical of AI, rightfully so, but their response is to bury their head in the sand and pretend like it doesn't exist. And there's this third group of folks who are you and myself, and I think we're saying like, look, there's a way to do both. You know, we're skeptical of AI. We're bringing it in the classroom to teach students where those skepticisms come from, so they can make
Mhm.
decisions themselves. Because we realize if we don't inform them in the classroom about these potential pitfalls or shortcomings of AI, the corporate PR system will fill that in. They will control that narrative. They will tell students you need to use this. It's the future, et cetera. So I think what you just described there is this radical idea called teaching.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, even just like the small things, I mean, for what shocked me the most when I first got into media literacy was when I was reading about computer literacy versus media literacy, and how for years people thought that students and younger generations had all this media literacy. Then come to find out, they do studies years later, all they had was computer literacy. People don't have those foundational media literacy skills that we thought they had. They're really good at PowerPoints, at design, at these different things. But this idea of like constructing or deconstructing narratives, of being able to see disinformation online, of being able to communicate online in effective ways, those weren't as innate as computer literacy skills. And so that was being confused for a while. But that does make me think about this when it comes to AI, because it's making me realize that I don't want that same mistake to be repeated with AI, is that we're just continually assuming that students are just going to get it, that they're just going to be like, yeah, I totally understand that AI is biased. I totally understand that it's created by biased humans and that it's not perfect and that it doesn't do a good job. I don't think that assumption is a good idea. And I think we've already seen how it's played out in media literacy.
Yeah, and I think that needs to be the mantra of this show, that we don't want it to be 1993 again. Like we don't want to make the same mistake we made with the internet, which you just described, right? Is like we conflated computer literacy with media literacy, and I think we're doing it now with what corporate AI companies are calling AI literacy.
Yeah.
And you also brought up in there something I think really important, which is the idea of foundational skills. So
Mm.
this is why I tell people, and I get a bunch of criticisms from my critical folks who, when they hear me say this, but there are good uses for AI, but you have
Mhm.
to have the foundational skills to understand how to use AI. And what I mean by foundational skills, one, content knowledge, but you need to be able to write, you need to be able to critically think, you need to be able to have reading comprehension. If you have those foundational skills, you're better positioned to use these AI systems. But without those, AI really can dominate your thinking and your the content you push out. And so there's been this interesting kind of discussion, and I really got to give credit to Gary Smith, who's been on this program,
Mhm.
author of the AI Delusion, and Meredith Broussard, who I hope to have on the program as well. She wrote More Than a Glitch and Artificial Unintelligence.
Mhm.
And in Gary's case, Gary has pointed out he is very skeptical about the idea of AI ever becoming as intelligent, let alone more intelligent than humans.
Mhm.
And he published an article just a couple weeks ago where the headline was something like LLMs, large language models, which is current AI, a lot of current AI. He said may actually become more intelligent than humans. So I was sort of surprised that Gary changed within a month. But I read the article, and he had an interesting argument that if we allow future generations to not learn those foundational skills that you and I were talking about and just learn from AI, then yes, the AI will be smarter than the human.
Yeah, we'll revert. Yeah, I love that's such a funny take too for someone who's like so foundationally like and then to yeah, absolutely. So smart and so true. I mean, there are so many skills that we do need those foundational skills in order to be able to articulate ourselves and to be able I mean, I people have said this to me and I kind of agree with them. I'm glad that AI wasn't around before my dissertation because I'm glad that I just didn't even have the temptation
Oh yeah.
to use it on the dissertation because these things we go through in life, like school, like a degree, they're very difficult. They're very challenging. I'm not surprised that students are using AI because I get it. I think it is so difficult to be able to go through these things. And students are very burned out. We see this at such high rates, especially in high schools, especially at universities. So, I think that's just to bring back to the point of bringing in the classroom, just another reason to, just because people really are using it out of what I feel like is desperation because there's so much else going on in their lives, or because these things are challenging and they are wanting a little bit of an escape. And so I do think that it's important that we provide that foundation and continue to help people to challenge those narratives because otherwise, I'm not sure who is going to do that.
Yeah, and there's another media literacy lesson in there as well that you're bringing up too. That these tools are always the corporate media tools are always advertised as convenience. They're going to
Mhm.
make our lives easier. But just anybody who's old enough, reflect back on the last 20 or 30 years. Look around. People are more and more busy, more and more exhausted, have less money. If it's making people's lives easier, that hasn't arrived. So I would be skeptical of that narrative coming with AI as well.
Yeah. I know, I was like, "If we could just do everything and have everything take over, I don't think we would anyway." We would just find ways to make ourselves even busier. Yeah, absolutely.
We hope we made your lives easier here on the Media Literacy Wrecking Crew. And we're going to be back every week. Sydney, myself, hope to have some guests. Dickie will return as well. Want to thank you all for tuning in. Stay media literate out there, detoxers.
Hey detoxers. Thanks for tuning in. You can find Disinfo Detox on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share. Every click helps grow the community and keeps those tech overlords happy. Detox complete.